in this review of Sourdough Shonen.
Ooh, teaser. Come on, Truckoo, let's do this thing. Have I got a show for you? Sometimes a few of the JoJo references seemed a little forced compared to the emptiness that is Kirito from SAO. She is 11 years old, for God's sake.
Keep it up and I'll lock your next anime in my Disney Plus channel.
Aw, not again.
Alright, I did my job. Now it's your turn.
Alright, you heard the man. Let's do this thing. What's up, people? Welcome back to my corner of the internet, where I talk about all things anime. I am your host, Ray, aka Sourdough Shonen. In this video, I'll be taking a look at the 17th most popular anime of all time, at least according to Mao, No Game, No Life. Not only is No Game, No Life super popular with anime fans, but is quite successful with critics as well, earning an 8.6 to this day on Mao. In celebration of the series' 10-year anniversary, I thought now would be a good time to go back and take a look at this Isekai masterpiece. Oh yes, indeed, you did hear me right. It has been a whole long decade since the show hit Japanese televisions. If this fact made you feel old, well, congratulations on joining me on the Anime Senior Citizen Club. On the plus side, your new dinner time is also just in time for the afternoon happy hour, which you will need in order to cope with the fact that you are indeed ancient. The first round is on me. Boomer jokes aside, back in 2014, I never did watch No Game No Life, despite all the hype I was hearing about at the time. However, my good friend and co-host of Taku Podcast, Frank, would occasionally bring up the show from time to time in our conversations, which always did make me wonder, was I missing on something really special? So after 10 long years, I finally got myself teleported into another world. Come on, Truckoo, let's do this thing, and let's find out if No Game No Life still holds up. For the 3 or 4 of you out there who don't know what No Game No Life is about, I'll give you the quick synopsis. The story starts off in the real world with a pair of otaku hikikomoris, Shiro and Sora. No, not that Sora. What are you trying to do? Get me a copyright strike trouble?
That better not be what I think it is.
Nothing, Your Majesty. You're hearing things again.
I sure hope not.
Oof, that was close. Anyways, our 2 reclusive siblings spend most of their time playing video games 24/7. Often the siblings would play together and form the undefeated internet persona known as Blank. With Sora's observation and psychological skills and Shiro's brilliant mind for mathematics and physics, these two form the ultimate gamer, which catches the attention of Tent, a god from another world. Tent is so impressed with Sora and Shiro that he whistles away to his fantasy world of Discord, or Disboard, very different, where violence is no longer allowed and everything is solved with a game. After doing some research, it turns out Disboard has 13 different fantasy species that make up the entire world. The races range from elves, angels, werebeasts, and lastly humans. Humans are seen as the most inferior race of the 13 different kingdoms. Here is where our main conflict lies in the series. It is a classic comeback story where it is up to Sora and Shiro to save the day and put humanity back on the map. With a setup like this, you basically have 2 choices when it comes to storytelling. You can make the series a How I Became the World's Greatest fill in the blank, such as in Pokemon or My Hero Academia. Here, viewers would see our heroes struggle and work hard to overcome their adversity. The other story option would be to have our heroes win no matter what, without breaking a single sweat, aka your typical Isekai power fantasy, like Sword Online and Solo Leveling. Unfortunately for me, No Game Life falls into the latter category. For example, the first major game the duo have to overcome involves chess, which I initially was intrigued with. Chess is indeed a complicated game where one little mistake can cost you everything. However, by the middle of the match, the rules of chess are chucked out the window, and it becomes a game of who can motivate or woo their living chess pieces better? No joke. The way these events are written suggests to me that the writer couldn't explain the nuances and complexities of chess, and had to resort to the good old heart of the cards technique in order to make our heroes look smart without having to do anything remotely clever and be victorious at the very end. The good news is if you're into Yu-Gi-Oh!, have I got a show for you. Sadly, the other game situations throughout the 12 episodes of this series do not fare much better in my eyes. As a 16-bit gamer myself, I found the lack of depth or challenge in the game scenarios of No Game No Life to be very disappointing. However, if you love power fantasy stories and you can turn off your brain, then I suppose there is some enjoyment to get out of this title. Well, maybe I'll find the characters of this anime a little bit more interesting. Spoiler alert, I did not. Sora does a good enough job playing the broken main character. At times, his over-the-top otaku personality give him some life, compared to the emptiness that is Kirito from SAO. My complaints with characters in No Game Life really come from the female characters and the fact that they're really not characters at all. There is Stephanie Dola, or Steph, who is an insert character for us, the audience, whose main purpose is to help us low IQ people keep up with the flawed logic that Sora and Shiro use on a daily basis. Not only does this reduce her to the show's punchy bag, it also destroys the little character she can even achieve in the series. The extra weird thing is that she's supposedly smart enough to run the entire human kingdom, yet she can't win a silly game of chance against Sora. I wish she was either dumb as a rock or the show gave her some real respect, and not the demeaning pity thanks she gets at the end of each game scenario. The other female character that didn't sit very well with me would be Shiro. The obvious problem being that the show loves to showing me her panties for some reason. She is 11 years old, for God's sake. The anime literally does this in the first few seconds of episode 1. What is even the point of doing this, I ask? Is it supposed to be funny? Should I be attracted to this? It all seems like an avoidable headache that can be easily remedied, but because of some weird Japanese subculture I'll never understand, I get to feel extra dirty just for being an anime fan. Thanks to No Game No Life, soon Chris Henson will be on my door and it'll be no game, no parole for me. My other issue with Shiro is that she really isn't much of a character either. She's often portrayed as a silent character who usually sits on Sora's lap. Yay. When she does speak, she mainly agrees with Sora's point and doesn't add much more to the conversation. It feels like her only purpose of the series is to pull off some absurd miracles and to sell merch for the franchise. The funny part to me is the anime often tries to remind us that the greatness of Link can only be possible thanks to the both siblings working in harmony. Yet in reality, it is mostly the Sora show.
But I'll lock your next anime in my Disney Plus channel.
Aw, not again. Alright, that's enough ranting for one day. Let me attempt to be a decent critic and actually discuss some of the things I actually enjoyed from the show's writing, which is its nerdy sense of humor. With No Game No Life's leads being a couple of otakus, it only seemed appropriate to sprinkle a few video game and anime references from time to time. I personally enjoyed the subtle sound effects from popular video games like Bust a Move and Super Mario. At first I thought I was hearing things, and then the copyright-free edition of Pursuit started playing, and I realized the sound designers and animators really had some fun on this project. Sometimes a few of the JoJo references seemed a little forced, but I think this kind of humor worked best when it was the characters themselves who inserted the nerdy references into the world. A prime example of this would be in the court scene early on, where Sora busts in and shouts, "Objection!" in a fantasy courtroom. Something I too do in real life. Objection! Yes, I am a big dork. These moments made me like Sora and Shiro for a brief moment, until they ruined the moment by doing something weird and or creepy. But before that, let's stick with the positives and stick with the show's humor. Another aspect I liked about it was the silly visual gags certain characters would do. For example, when Steph tells Sora that she's had enough of them and her patience is full, the artist drew a cute little bag that represented her patience. The director was wise and utilized this method throughout the show's run. It did help me get over some of the rough patches I had, aka the incest scene. Speaking of which, now it's time to address the elephant in the room. The weird closeness between Sora and Shiro just doesn't sit well with me. I know they are hikikomoris and supposedly have no one else in their lives, but being this close all the time just seems like a bad thing. I mean, these two literally have a mental breakdown unless they can visually see each other in the same room. Sometimes the anime would try to suggest that there's something weird going on between these two. However, there are more than plenty of times where the writer seems like they sure are trying to ship them to us, the audience. By the way, did I use that term ship? Is that the right way to use that? I don't really know. Anyway, I don't think technically they are blood related. The anime actually never says 100% one way or another. Maybe in the light novel books they do. But either way you slice it, it's just not a situation I care for. Let me move on and talk about No Game No Life's art and animation. As you probably have noticed by now, No Game No Life stands out from your typical anime look. The fantasy world is powered by its sulfur-like brightness, especially compared to the dark, depressing colors of the real world that we see in the very beginning of the series. Of course, by doing this, it also helps depict how our protagonists see the hopelessness of the real world Tokyo compared to the boundless potential of Disboard. It is a bold artistic choice that I respect, even though I can't really say I'm technically a fan of it. However, I frequently prefer artists who aren't afraid to swing for the fences versus those who just play it safe. The color palette too is unique with its unhealthy obsession with purples, dark blues, and pinks. It is an intriguing combination to have main colors so relatively cold and yet the brightness at very extreme high levels. This technique does send the message to us, the viewers, that we are definitely no longer in Kansas, but that we are in a world of endless opportunity. My thoughts regarding this production's animation are pretty simple and clean.
Don't make me come over there.
Alright, that one I deserve. The animation of No Game No Life is done by none other than Madhouse, one of my personal old school favorite anime studios out there. The quality of animation in this production did meet my expectations for this kind of series. While I can't recall a particular amazing moment of animation, it did move well enough and it never hindered my experience while viewing it. This series is much more of a thinker like a Death Note and is not action oriented like a One Punch Man. If you're looking for some amazing Sakuga animation, you might feel up a little disappointed with this 2014 production. In regards to the voice acting of No Game No Life, it was just kinda for me. The Japanese voices did an adequate job in the acting department, or at least as far as I can tell as a non-speaking Japanese person. My concerns really come from the choices of voices that are used in the original voice track. Since the show is basically a harem anime, it is full of voice actors who are trying to play the typical squeaky cute girl characters that you often see in the genre, and me and high-pitched cute voices just don't get along. There is an English voice track option which does fix the squeaky voices, however the acting is not as strong as the Japanese version. In the end, I ended up watching most of the series in Japanese and just simply covered my ears when they were done bleeding out. The original soundtrack, or OST, fares much better in my opinion. The soundtrack is usually smothered in electrical beats and a heavy bass. The style of the music does invoke the image of the conventional video game soundtrack, which is most fitting for this project. I did have images of Danganronpa and Wii Sports of all things pop up my head when I went back for another listen to the soundtrack. The opening and ending themes of No Game Life are just okay for me. I know the opening itself is pretty popular with anime fans, yet I never really got myself into it and just ended up skipping it most of the time. This song is a banger, as the kids would say I believe, but the animation that accompanies just was a little lackluster for my taste. Alright, to quickly summarize my thoughts about No Game Life, I did think the setting of the anime was an interesting concept. The characters did make me want to bang my head against the wall, just like Steph. I found the game logic and scenarios to be a little too convenient and lack the depth that I was looking for. The art used in the anime is very colorful, and it did make it stand out from the typical Isekai show. The animation did not disappoint. The acting was a mixed bag of both in English and Japanese. The soundtrack was a pleasant highlight for me, and it makes me want to add it to my Spotify playlist. So, at the end of the day, do I think No Game No Life still holds up after all these years? Personally, probably no. However, if you're a big Isekai fan, there is no doubt this anime helped pave the way for the genre and helped similar anime titles become huge successes such as Konosuba, Re:Zero, and Overlord, which are all shows I would highly recommend checking out. I am curious to hear what old fans would think of No Game No Life if they went back and rewatched it today. Would it still be an 8 out of 10 in their book? If you are one of these people, please let me know down below in the comments section. I'm actually really curious. I know nostalgia can be quite a powerful thing. I should know, being a Dragon Ball Z fan, I love Dragon Ball, but going back to it sometimes is pretty darn hard. It's kind of amazing how much patience we had as kids. I am sorry to disappoint any fans who are hoping to hear nothing but praise from me. I tend to come off as a tough and sour critic a lot of the times, which is indeed fitting, but I do want to mention that I always do appreciate all the hard work that people put into these productions. Despite how grumpy I can sound, I do indeed love anime, and all because I didn't like something doesn't mean I think anyone who does is wrong. It just means we have different tastes and preferences. It's perfectly fine to like something that some don't, or vice versa if you ask me. After all, it's those little differences that make this world interesting and us human. If you made it this far into the video, I sincerely thank you for listening to this old man ramble on and on. If you're a masochist, please hit that like button and consider clicking on the subscribe button as well. These things really do help out the channel significantly, especially for smaller YouTubers such as myself. If you want to hear more from me, and more importantly my fellow nerdy co-hosts who are a lot less grumpier than me, please consider giving Taku Otaku Podcast a listen. We are a video game anime focused podcast. We are currently about to cover the new spring 2024 anime season, and as well as do our spoiler discussion on Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. So if that has your interest, I'll leave a link down below to the podcast in the description section of this video. If you want to see me fail as a gamer in front of a live studio audience, you can also follow me on Twitch. I try to stream every Monday or Tuesday around 7 p.m. PDE time, aka West Coast time since I live here in LA. I am about to start my adventure through Alan Wake 2, which I'm very excited about. Should be a good one. If you're still a glutton for punishment, you can also follow me on my various social medias such as Twitter or Instagram. Hopefully I'll post something on TikTok in the near future, so if you want to follow me there, you can do that as well. I will post links to my social media and my other projects outside of YouTube down below as well in the description section, so go ahead and click away. And with that, I finally checked all my boxes I set out to do today in this video. Once again, thank you so much for watching, and I hope you guys have a good one, and I'll hear from you in the near future. Until then, laters people!